Hi, this is Ben Quiggle, editor of Woodall's Campground Magazine, and of course my esteemed colleague Mike Gast, former Vice President of Campgrounds of America, Vice President of Communications for Campgrounds of America
Yeah,
Incorporated.
that place is full of vice presidents. You got to make
No.
sure you detail that.
Not the only vice president. So, and then our guest today is David Korse, the owner, or is it the owner, David, of the Glamping Show USA? Or
I'm a co-owner. We use the word principal because it sounds really impressive, but yeah, I'm one of the owners.
Okay, one of the owners of the Glamping Show USA, which starts next week, October. Well, the official dates are October 4th through the 5th, but you guys are also doing some stuff on October 3rd with the American Glamping Association. I know they have a number of different things they're doing on the 3rd, and I personally am going to be attending, and I'm just really excited to see what you have in store. I mean, the weather looks like it's going to hold out for the outside portions, at least for right now.
The forecast is temperature in the low to mid 70s, lows around 50 or 48, and I think the worst day is a 22% chance of precipitation on the 10-day forecast. So it's looking good.
Yeah, it's looking really good. I think a lot of people are always a little bit nervous about the weather just because you do have such a large, like, outdoor portion. If nobody's been to this conference, it is a little bit more unique because you guys have the indoor stuff where you do the education and you have some indoor vendors, but then you have, like, I think this year it's 70 plus glamping units outside, right?
Yeah, it's true. I think it's an opportunity for people to see these different structures kind of as they would be in the wild, if you will. It's more like looking at model homes, as you've seen before, Ben. They're set up, whether it's a tent, a teepee, a yurt, a tiny home, whatever it might be. And most of them are furnished, I mean, kind of to the nines, really staged well so people can get a sense of what these things might look like when they're actually set up at a glamping resort, and for guests to come and start enjoying them.
Well, it's probably good that you schedule a bad weather day than just a torture test, whatever you got out in the parking lot, right?
Well, thanks for the nice wishes, Mike. We actually had that happen, Ben remembers, in 2019 on the second day of the expo. It was 70 degrees and sunny in the morning. And at 2 o'clock, the wind came up, and by 2:30, it was snowing. And it was interesting. Half the exhibitors outside went, "Oh my God, it's snowing." And the other half said, "See, this is the kind of quality we manufacture. We're good for 4 seasons. You know, this shows the kind of quality we have." So it worked out well for some folks. But
so, David, tell us. Now it's been 4 years since the first show.
First test event was in 2018. So if you include the virtual event in 2020, this will be the 5th time we've gotten together.
Okay, what did it look like when you started, and what's it going to look like this year? I mean, as far as
size. In a Denver hotel. It was a proof of concept conference, no expo at all. We hoped if we could get 50 or 60 people there, that would show there would be an interest in the glamping sector. And we got 120. So 120 delegates paid money for education and to sit around talking about business of glamping. This year, we already have more than 1,200 people registered. We finished last year with over 1,000, so we're running pretty well ahead. Last year we had 70 exhibitors. This year we have 111. We got one yesterday. 111 exhibitors from 11 different countries. So well over 1,000 people from the glamping business and over 110 exhibitors. We have 8 conference sessions on Tuesday and Wednesday, plus these 2 pre-show workshops with the American Glamping Association Ben referred to. So 3 days of education, 2 days of expo, a welcome reception out in the outdoor exhibit area on Tuesday. Show closes at 5 and the reception opens at 5 from 5 to 6. Have our own version of Taco Tuesday with tacos and beer and soda. And that, depending on who stays after we close, it could be 1,000 people walking around on the grass and enjoying the weather.
So something that's always struck me about glamping is that different than the RV business and North American camping, even it seems like we're geographically bound a little bit in the RV business in North America and camping also. But glamping seems like it just doesn't have any borders, and it translates so well. And I know that you've got a sister show out in Europe that just concluded, I think, a week or so ago.
Right. The original show started in 2015 in Coventry, England, and they had their event last week, and it was the largest they've ever had. This is their 8th year.
Yeah, it looked like it went pretty well over there.
Yeah,
So
they had a really good show. They moved into a new venue, more space, more visitors. They had people from all over Europe that came in the Middle East. So yeah, it's pretty much, it's not just a local thing, it's an international thing. People like the idea of being exposed to the outdoors, but not having to bring a lot of stuff with them, and they can just kind of show up, and everything's kind of turnkey and provided, and I think that's part of the attraction.
So does Europe still run ahead of us a little bit in North America?
Pretty substantially. It's just better established. It's been happening there for a couple of decades. So people have been doing it longer. It's been more part of their travel vocabulary. They think about it as an option. A lot of people here in the States are still asking what the word means. What's a glamper? And you have to go through the whole glamorous camping and explain the difference. So I think we're still on the sharp part of the incline going up as the consumer is becoming aware of what glamping really is, or really how pervasive it is. I mean, you can glamp all over the States or all over everywhere. It's just a lot of people are just now discovering it.
Is the definition a little murkier over here in the U.S. versus over there in Europe? Is it a little bit more defined?
I don't think so. I mean, I think it might have been a few years ago, Ben, but I mean, people are stretching the boundaries. So when we first started thinking about this, I thought of glamping as being a safari tent in Africa, someplace going on safari, with porters and all the, kind of 1940s movie kind of scenery around it. But it was certainly about outdoors and Yosemite versus the ocean versus the Everglades versus whatever. But as you probably know, there are people who are now doing urban glamping. So
Yeah.
you can go to New York City and Roosevelt Island and glamp looking at the skyline of Manhattan. You can go to Germany and glamp on top of a 60-story building on the roof deck, and you're looking down on the city. So it's still about luxury accommodations and turnkey and being outdoors, but not necessarily roughing it or being in the middle of Montana someplace.
Yeah. Well, let me pull up your Glamping Show website here. We get all fancy on the show, so we finally figured out how to do this.
Things have changed since we did this last year.
Yeah, this is the royal we. Ben's in charge of he's driving.
So this is the Glamping Show USA website, and you have a really great website here. It's pretty self-explanatory. It's easy to kind of scroll around in, but you noticed the investment connection. Can you just talk to us a little bit about what that is? I know the American Glamping Association is putting that on, and that's the day before on October 3rd. So just
Sure.
it's kind of an interesting workshop. So
Well, it's a partnership between the American Glamping Association, the AGA, and us. So it's been co-produced. Same thing with the Glamping Business Basics, which happens later on Monday. But the investment connection is the result of some of the research we did at last year's show, and asking, what are the biggest issues? What are the biggest challenges? What would you like to know more about for next year? And we had a really strong level of sentiment about access to capital. I went to I want to borrow some money to expand. My banker said what is glamping? What do you mean you want to borrow money to buy a bunch of tents? I don't know what to do. Or I've heard about all these equity investors coming into the marketplace with really big checks. How do I get their attention? How do I look for investors? And how do I grow my business? But it's all about capital and money. So this was mostly Ruben Martinez, who's one of the founders of the AGA, his brainchild. We put together a panel of financial experts, and the AGA has gone to their membership and found 6 companies, 6 members, who are getting close to the part of the process where they're going to be looking for money, either loans or investors. And so they're helping them put together a 20-minute pitch, a presentation. And we're borrowing a little bit from sort of the Shark Tank kind of concept. So these 6 members are each going to get 20 minutes to present the opportunity of either loaning or investing money in their businesses to this panel. Now, unlike Shark Tank, they're not going to be competing to make an investment. What they're going to be doing is giving constructive feedback, saying, hey, Mike, I loved your presentation. It was great. Sounds like a wonderful business. I have a couple of questions, or I didn't quite understand this, or I thought that was a really strong part of your pitch. So that these 6 members can take on this constructive criticism and use it to better refine their presentation. So when the time comes to really do it, they're much better prepared. For the people in the audience, it'll be about 2/3 other entrepreneurs from the glamping industry who, how does the process work? What are these pitches you're talking about? What does it have to include? What do I need to do? And we have we have several financial institutions, both equity investors, private equity, and lending institutions who are going to be there as well. And so it's kind of a giant meat market, if you will, for people with money and people who would like access to money to network with each other. And when the session's all done, go have lunch together. So a great networking opportunity. It's for people who want to find out how the money works, if they need to find some. And that's the glamping investment connection.
Yeah, and then I think you have your glamping business basics, which is always just good. You bring in a number of different speakers. I think you're bringing in Christine Taylor from the Towney Law Firm this year, which she's a great speaker, great lady who knows a lot of hospitality law stuff. I think last year you had Diana Kelly from the California Association, and just I think the glamping business basics is just really great because it just kind of gives people, like what you mentioned, a checklist of things that to focus on as they begin their journey, or even if they've just started a business. It's great just to hear some maybe areas that maybe they missed. So
yeah, it worked really well last year. The all new speakers this year. It's the same point of view about, hey, you're thinking about doing this, or you're early in the journey. Here's some stuff to help you make it, this checklist, if you will. So the only thing we're doing differently, other than doing it again this year, is we added a box lunch because last year people got kind of hungry. So this time it includes lunch as well.
People don't get hungry at these kinds of events.
Well, I'm not sure who you've been talking to.
And then, just the glamping conference program here. Of course, you get wonderful speakers like me, who's going to be moderating a panel. You don't want to miss that one on off-grid solutions. But you just have like a gambit of different information. So marketing sessions, off-grid, people who get up there and talk about their journeys, USDA loans. I mean, you just have a ton of stuff here. And you separate it out pretty well between the 2 days. There's 4 sessions each day, right?
Yeah, 4 sessions a day for 2 days. And the objective then is to give you tools, information, education, and experts you can talk to about growing your business. How can you improve profitability, increase revenue, attract more customers, retain customers? It's all about helping you improve and grow your business.
And then you guys added so many different experiences this year, like the e-bike experience that people can register for. White Duck Outdoors is doing like fireside chats out by their booth, which I think they did last year, or somebody did last year.
Yep.
And then you also are doing glamping on site, and just a lot of different experiences for people this year. It's a beautiful venue. You're outdoors. You can see Denver in the distance. You can see the mountains, and the weather's looking great.
It is, yeah. It's a fun place to spend a couple of days if you are interested in the business.
And then I guess looking at the expo side, you guys, how many vendors in total are you looking? I think you mentioned
111, approximately.
111. And then maybe some vendors will just walk up, right?
Well, they're certainly welcome to. I teased somebody the other day who said, how late can I book a space? And I said, if we still have space available and you walk up on Monday with a bag of cash, we're open. But Typically, it takes a little more preparation. That we got a new exhibitor a couple of days ago, and I think they will be our last. But it's
Yeah.
growing very nicely. The range of products and services is broader than it has been before. We have way more structures on display. It's really fun to see what people are doing.
Yeah.
So the nice thing about glamping too is it's so scalable. I mean, you could get into it with a tent or two for starters, and then take it from there. And I know in the camping side of the business, it was always thought of as an add-on. Well, I've got 2 glamping tents over here, and to different degrees of care. But I've seen a lot of interest in that. It's just grown. It's going to be a bigger share of even the camping side of the business. Do you foresee a time when we're going to start seeing more glamping than traditional camping on some of these traditional campgrounds?
I think that's going to be a financial consideration by the manager. I mean, the owner is going to say, "This is how much I make from per spot," or however you want to do it for the camping part of my business, or for an RV park. This is how much I make for each space I have to sell for RV parking and overnight. And here's how much I get for my cabin. If you remember the research that KOA did, Mike, you might have still been there at the time back in 2019, when they did show the return on investment when they converted some space at some of the KOA sites over to glamping and put up some cabins. And I think the longest return on investment for all the monies invested was like 23 months or 24 months. And they went from $70 a night to $160 a night for the same piece of real estate. So I think people will do that math and decide. But there's more work to running a glamping business than there is a traditional campground, because you got more maintenance and more things to break and more things to stock, and it's just a different level of service. So it depends on what somebody wants to do and what their business model is.
So are you hearing any concerns from owners about the hiring and just staffing these places? That's got to be a concern this year.
Yeah, it's finding staff, retaining staff, scaling staff for the different seasons and stuff. But it's no different than the problems any other business in any other sector. It's not unique to the glamping business. It's just part of post-pandemic here, trying to figure out how to get help and how much I have to do myself and scale. So yeah, it's a big issue. I don't think it's going to go away anytime soon.
So what are your vendors saying about the supply side issues? Are they starting to level out a little bit? Are they having a little bit easier time getting the product?
It depends on where they are. It's getting better, but it isn't fixed. One of our exhibitors actually had a factory in the Ukraine. That's a problem. And are in the process of moving that to Poland, because you can't do that in Ukraine right now. So it's a global business, and a lot of things are manufactured offshore from wherever you are, or just shipping it in a container. And the cost of shipping, our exhibitors have had to deal with 100-300% increases in the cost of shipping their stuff to and from the show. The cost of a container from Europe may be twice what it was last year, and that comes it's right off the top. So supply chain, transportation, timing. We had a couple of people from Europe who had to use air freight because they missed the window on sea freight because of the backlogs at some major ports. So if they can't get it to us in time, they're going to have the same problem with the ultimate consumer. So it's a challenge, but everybody's working through it. Order books are pretty full, I think, and they're still taking orders.
Yeah. I mean, it's just surprising. So do you think the show's growth is directly related to the growth in glamping, or?
Yeah, if we're doing our job properly, Ben, we're reflecting the industry we serve. What you're seeing it too, I'm sure, is there's a giant influx of people who are discovering glamping as a consumer, as a vacation alternative, but a lot of people discovering glamping as a business opportunity. The pandemic changed perspective for everybody at some level. And if somebody was thinking about starting their own business and doesn't want to be inside and doesn't want to be in an office or in a retail establishment, the idea of having a glamping business can be pretty attractive. So giant influx of people entering the marketplace. and people who have been sitting on the sidelines now looking, maybe now's the time. We talked to publisher of a trade magazine that serves the ski market.
Yeah.
Their members are all ski resorts, the Vales and the Aspens of the world. And there is a tremendous interest from them because they have all this land, and there are at least parts of the year where maybe some of that land can be redeployed. It's a beautiful area. You're not skiing down it with no snow. You get more and more vineyards who are looking at doing this kind of experience, and that goes on and on and on. So I think people are still figuring it out and adapting the opportunity. I think the growth's going to be with us for a little while yet.
Yeah. I think in years past, there's been quite a few people who have shown up who are new to the industry and want to build a park or are looking to build a location. Do you anticipate a lot of those kinds of people this year, or do you expect a decent chunk of people who already have resorts to show up to the show as well? Is there value for both types of owners?
Well, there's been value for both so far because that's been the two segments of the audience, the people who are already doing it and the people who want to do it. It's interesting, if you go from 2019, which was our first full event out, in person, skip 2020 because that was virtual, and then go to 21, we actually had more existing glamping businesses come to the 2021 event, but a smaller percentage because our visitor growth was so big. So we had 450 visitors, of which about 200 were existing, maybe 250 were existing glamping businesses. In 19, we had over 450 existing businesses last year, but with 1,000 people, it was a smaller percentage of our total.
Yeah.
And this year, we won't know the demographics till we do the analysis after, but it wouldn't surprise me if we were still in that 50-50 or 55-45 kind of division where about half the folks are already doing it and want to grow and checking in to see what's happening, and the other half are very new. And our exhibitors really seem to like that percentage because if they're new, exhibitors can influence them right from the get-go. They can say, here's the product or the service you should have to open your business, as opposed to here's the product or service you should change to from what you're already doing, which is a different conversation.
Well, having an experienced crowd there must change what you have to provide on education too. They're going to be more sophisticated out of the box.
Well, if you look at the 8 sessions, Mike, you'll see. I mean, some of them. Well, I guess one of my favorites is the social media influencer session. How you can use social media influencers to grow your business. It's something that a lot of big companies have been doing for several years, but there are opportunities for small organizations as well. And a lot of people don't know how to do it or are still getting their social media legs under them. And this is sort of here's a best practice. Here's something you can do. Here's how you can do it. Here's the benefit. Whether you're new or existing, a lot of people don't quite have this figured out yet. That should be a valuable piece of conference content, regardless of where you are on that scale. So Sally Madison's our conference director. She's my partner. She's one of the owners as well.
Yeah.
And she's worked really hard to make sure that all 8 of those sessions appeal to the widest variety, widest demographic possible. And based on last year's results and how people felt about it, she does a really good job nailing that sweet spot for what people are looking for.
So we haven't mentioned either, David, that you've got a great digital magazine that kind of goes hand in hand with your show, and it's full of great stories from wonderful writers, right?
Is Preston Company included for both of you?
Yeah, but you let me contribute once in a while, and that's kind of fun. And what made me think of that is that the story I did for this current issue on SMS and text messaging to guests while they're on the park. Yeah. That level of sophistication has come along so fast, and it's almost a have to have now.
Yeah, the technology is not going to. The pace of technology, invention or adoption is not going to slow down. It's just not. So keeping up with that stuff is important. We can only really effectively do the show once a year. I mean, we could do it more times, but it would annoy everybody to death asking them to come by 2 or 3 or 4 times a year. People ask if we're going to do it on, bi-coastally or something. It'll be too much of everybody's time and budget to do this more than once a year, the way the industry is right now. But
yeah, and again, another plug for the magazine. This isn't, we talk about the show being a once a year thing, but this thing is out there 4 times a year, and it's a great resource for.
Mike, we just increased. We're going to have it. December will be our first issue, number 5 during the year. Glamping Business Americas. About 80% of the readers are U.S., about 5% Canada, and about 15% Mexico and further south. The magazine's reasonably robust. It is a digital magazine, so we don't kill any trees producing it, and subscriptions are free. The only time we print it, and you're looking at the current issue right now, thank you, Ben.
Yeah.
This is our show issue. And so this one serves as both the real magazine, but also the show directory. You're seeing speaker biographies and photographs. You're seeing ads. You're seeing the floor plan and exhibitor list.
Ben.
Here's Ben. So we've printed 1,500 of these, and they have arrived in the Denver area. And so everybody who wants one can have one when we get to the show next week. And this will be the directory you can use to find your way around, have the list of events, and the content, including Mike's article on texting and SMS. So anybody who wants to, you can review previous issues on our website at glampingshow.us. It's free, or you can subscribe. It's free. We started last year in February of 2021 with just under 4,000 subscribers, and we now have almost 5,500 subscribers who get the magazine. Now it'll be 5 times a year. So thanks for the plug, Mike. But please, if you haven't seen it, take a look.
The photography you guys get's almost worth it just by itself. I mean, you guys have some great pictures in the magazine. I don't know. How do you get those pictures? Are they all submitted, or?
It's a combination. We go to people like you, Ben, and say, "Have you got any great pictures?" We go to the manufacturers and ask them. We go to the site operators and ask them. We take an awful lot of stuff at the show and use it throughout the year. So at the show next week, we'll have 3 different photographers and a videographer, and we're going to repeat last year's experiment. We're going to have a drone operator, so we'll do some drone photography, videography as well. So that'll hopefully give us enough inventory to carry us through the next publishing year.
Yeah, definitely. And drone video you guys took for that Facebook ad that you keep flooding my Facebook page with. I mean, it's just a gorgeous drone shot. So whoever you paid to do the drone video last year or whenever that was taken, you need to pay them more. So maybe
he'll be back again this year. His name is Moose, and when you see him, you will know why. But he came with, I guess, his smallest drone was about that big, and his biggest drone was about 36 inches across.
Yeah.
And you saw, he was flying through structures and into structures and around.
Let me see if I can't find that video.
The one thing we had to talk to him about is he did one in one of the yurts where he went to the top of the roof and then did like a 720 rotation. And we had several members of our staff who immediately got nauseous. So we didn't leave that part in the video you're going to show, but we just, there was some parts we had to smooth out.
Yeah, definitely. It was neat. You guys always do a really great job with the photography for the show too. So people are getting really creative with those drone videos nowadays.
So David, what's next in glamping? I know you've had a lot more vendors show up. There's got to be people that are getting into this thing with really innovative things, because there's just no limit as to what people can put out there.
It's true. I guess one of the most interesting things, I just be careful how we say that, because I don't mean to say one is better or worse than the other. One of the things I haven't seen first person before that I've read about is 3D printing. And I think of 3D printing and I think of small things and toys and stuff. But we have an exhibitor who's coming with a couple of 3D printed walls, because they will come on site to your new resort and you design it. I mean, they can do literally anything you can think of. You want a wavy pattern, you want square, whatever you want, and we'll extrude 3D model and manufacture those structures on site and build them and set them up. it's incredible. It's amazing. Some of the creativity and some of the structures we're seeing, just, my goodness, people are pretty darn creative. But we've got more furniture companies this time. We have more service providers. You talked about legal services. We have a company that's providing outsourced accounting and bookkeeping services for the outdoor hospitality industry. The people I'm looking forward to meeting, first person for the first time, we have a marshmallow vendor, and she's going to be doing samples out of their booth. So it's a pretty wide variety of things. And for the 111 companies that said yes, we had 30 or 40 that said we just can't get it together for this year. But let's talk about it for next year. So if we have a good show, and if you all like it, and everybody who's attending next week likes it and says good things about it, tells their friends, then we have a shot for continuing this growth curve when we come back in 23.
Yeah. I mean, I had some people come up to me and just ask me about the value of the glamping show. And, it's hard to say anything negative about it. I mean, it's always worth, I think, going out and just trying, even if from an attendee perspective, you go out and try it. And, it's not for everyone. Not every vendor or every person is looking for the glamping thing, but I think just being able to go out and actually see the tents and the structures is just a neat part, even for like traditional campground owners, just being able to go out there and actually see the structures. I know at other conferences, they do have some structures, but not quite to the scale that you have, David, at your show. So,
well, it was important to us to find a venue that would allow us to have create this kind of environment. And we could do the show in a typical exhibition hall, and anything set up on the grass outside, we can set up inside on concrete.
yeah,
It just wouldn't have the same impact. It wouldn't feel as natural, I guess, is the word I want to use. So, I mean, at some point in time, if we outgrow this place, we have to find another place to go. But ideally, we'll always have the outdoor component to what we're doing, because it just makes it more, I have to tell you, it just makes it more fun.
yeah, yep. And then you guys do something unique for the conference as well. There are some other conferences that do this, but you guys open up the expo for free to people who just want to come take part in the expo. Unless they show up day of, then it's $50, right?
Yeah, it's if somebody wants to go to the trade show and they're a trade visitor, we're not open to consumers. We discourage them aggressively.
Yeah.
But if it's somebody who says, I don't want to go to the sessions, I just want to look at all the stuff for my business, then they just register as what we call Expo Hall Pass. And that means basically you're not going to any of the sessions, you're just going to the trade show, see those 111 exhibitors. And that's free of charge unless you fail to do it online. It is so much trouble for us to have to handle the credit card or cash and all that stuff on site that we try and scare everybody away and say it's $50 on site. And we don't want the $50. So even if you drive up unannounced, take out your smartphone, register from the parking lot, and then walk inside, it's free. But if you don't do that, you just walk inside, we're going to ask you for $50 a person. And I swear to goodness, we don't want the money. It slows everything down. It becomes awkward. Please register online.
And how many people do you have come for that free expo part? Is it a pretty big chunk, or?
It's about half and half, Ben. Last year we had 1,055 verified trade visitors. That verified means they picked up their badge. If you looked at there were like 26 badges left over of people that registered and didn't show up. So we don't count them. So 1,055, 550 went to the conference program. 505 were expo only. So we'll see if that number holds again. Based on registration so far, it looks like it's going to be about the same percentages, a little more of each, the way things are going, but it looks like it might wind up about 50-50, which is good for exhibitors because that means there are people for them to talk to, even though the conferences are in session. There's so many events I've gone to as an exhibitor where you're in your booth, but there's nobody talking to you because they're all in session, back to back to back, coffee breaks. Yep. This way we have a full hour between sessions, and as you've been there, there's nothing else to do in that venue. You can go see exhibitors. So we have an hour of conference delegates get their 4 hours of time a day. when they're not in session, and the expo hall only folks are there. Our two biggest complaints last year were both food related. Our exhibitors said, I never had time to get lunch, which is a good problem to have. And because we're still in pandemic time, we had to use a vendor that had to make things in advance because you couldn't do live food preparation and stuff. And so by the time those the box lunches got to the venue, they were not as perfect as we would have liked them to be. This year, we actually went to a name brand. So all of the continental breakfast for the conference delegates and the box lunches are all coming from Panera Bread. And there's multiple selections each day. So we've upped the quality of the food for those who are getting food. But our exhibitors still have the challenge, if we're really busy, of how do they get away from the booth and go grab something to eat before they get faint with hunger.
Well, I guess you could always get delivery people, deliver it to all the booths.
Well, it's hard to organize, but Uber Eats will deliver to the Arapahoe County Fairgrounds. So
there you go. And you are right. Once you get there, there isn't too much to do around the fairground area. I mean, there's some beautiful views, but I think there's like a running. I think I saw some cross country runners last year doing like a track they have right there.
Yeah, this year we're going to use the equestrian arena for the e-bike experience. They also look at this year is we have the 40 bell tents, the glamping village. We have 40 different tents of people staying on site. That'll be off behind the outdoor events arena, so people can go look at the glamping village and see the beautiful tents and furnishings that Stout Tent has arranged. So there's a little more to see this year than in the past, but I think the nearest McDonald's is 8 or 10 minute drive away. We're not close to a gas station or a 7-Eleven.
Yeah, so everybody should just be focused on glamping. Is Honey Trek going to be there this year?
Yeah, Honey Trek is actually speaking. They're going to be doing speaking on the social media influencer, how to use social media influencers, and they set the bar.
Well, just coming from an RV show, if anybody in the audience likes RVs, I know last year they had a really cool Toyota unit that they've been driving around in. They're going to bring that back this year?
I don't know what they're going to be in this year. Andy and Mike are always a surprise, but they always show up in an RV. They offer to sell and autograph their spectacular books. And if they do what they've done the last couple of years, it's a good place to go for a glass of mulled wine, which is what they're serving from. They'll have space. They have actual exhibit space with their camper in the outdoor exhibit area.
I think I already got an invitation from Mike about the wine. So we'll see.
It's become their thing. So I suspect they'll do it again.
It's always cool to run into them because they do have some fantastic books, and their work with National Geographic and just the travels that they've been on in that Toyota unit that they have that they've just driven the hell out of. So
I think the Toyota's name is Buddy. I think that's the three of them. It's Mike and Ann and Buddy.
So, well, I think we probably going to wrap up here, David, but I'll be seeing you on Monday. So,
I look forward to it. Mike, we'll look forward to seeing you next year.
Next year, a couple more months, and I'll come back to the mainland, and we'll start hitting the road a little bit. But yeah, definitely it's on the calendar for next year. I'm not going to miss this. This is something that, after being in the camping business for 20 some years, it's just amazing that we've got a whole new segment that just came out of nowhere. It seems like, and it's just taken the world by storm. So it's fun to watch this go, and it's fun to be part of it.
Well, we look forward to seeing you there. Ben, thanks for helping us out with speaking and stuff. And anybody who hasn't decided to join us already, there's still time. Or get the darn magazine. So thanks, everybody. We appreciate it. We look forward to seeing you next week.
All right. Yeah. I'll look forward to seeing you too, David. And thanks, everyone, for watching. And I hope everyone has a great rest of the week. So.
See ya.